All right. Well, welcome to the Speed Traveler Roadshow here on KHTS Radio AM 1220. If you're listening locally in the Santa Clarita Valley, you can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. I am joined by my friend Chris Evertsen. Chris, how you doing today?
Charlie, it's great to be here today. Sorry, I'm not actually in the studio, but it started to drizzle here in California, so I don't know how to drive in the rain.
Yeah, no one knows how to drive in the rain in Southern California. God forbid it ever snowed.
That would just wreak absolute havoc.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, my brother lives up in the Central Cal and Northern California area in a really nice mountain area, and he's saying they're getting quite a bit of snow already. So I'm certain the folks up in Mammoth Mountain are excited.
Oh yeah, it came late this year. The snow, if you're not a California local, we had a record-breaking snowfall last season, and it really didn't snow until about Christmas time this year. And then all of a sudden, now
Yeah,
they're getting snow.
yeah, that's kind of funny how it happens here in SoCal, but it's kind of interesting. I know we got a lot to talk about today, and you're going to get into our headlines, but we just mentioned Mammoth Mountain, and that is actually a really fun drive to take. Just a quick aside for all you road trippers: driving the Mammoth Lakes through the old route is a lot of fun. Can also find your way to Yosemite from there. Just a little side note.
No, that's great. And if you're new to the Speed Traveler Roadshow, we talk cars, we talk Formula One racing, we talk how to find cars that are going up in value. That's a unique concept as opposed to going down in value. And Chris and I have bought and sold probably 200 cars in our lifetimes. It took us a long time to kind of figure out what the do's and don'ts are. And so we like to share that information with our listener. But yeah, it should be a fun show, and Happy New Year, by the way, Chris.
That's right. It is 2024. Happy New Year's to you, Charlie, and the family, and all our listeners. We're so glad you're joining us here in the new year. And we got a lot going on this year. Some cool new projects coming up. I'm really excited about them.
Yeah, we are going to talk a little bit about what we're doing this year, what the Speed Traveler's doing. And, each week we have a featured marque here on the Speed Traveler. So if you're interested in a classic car or an exotic car and you're new to the Speed Traveler, you can go to our YouTube page, which is The Speed Traveler. And you can go back and find shows that we've done on Volkswagens, Corvettes, Porsches, Ferraris, all sorts of things, and definitely worth a listen if you're in the market to purchase a classic car. Also, we talk about road trips here and all the fun trips we've taken. We're going to talk about that a little bit later this afternoon or a little bit later in the show, and also how to buy classic cars. The right way to do it, the wrong way to do it. Like I said, we've bought and sold 200 cars in the past, and we've definitely taken it in the pants a few times and lost a lot of money. But we've kind of mastered that technique now, and we have a lot of information to share with our
Well,
listeners.
I have to call you out on that. I don't know that necessarily we've mastered it because there's a couple of cars in our storage facility that are
Right.
are, are a bit of a debacle
On blocks.
but they're right next to some really great project cars.
Yeah, that's true. There is the clunker file, and then there's the home run file. But yeah, but first, Chris, let's talk a little news for 2024. We'll talk about what's going on in the Speed Traveler and what we can expect for 2024.
Well, with that in mind, Charlie, I'm super excited to announce that you and I, with the Speed Traveler, we are going to be doing a F1 Formula One exclusive podcast, basically covering all of the events throughout the year, and there's 23 of them this year. Plus some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes and everything else. Basically a show, everything Formula One.
Yeah, and it's much needed. We get that request a lot from our listeners. They want us to go more into a deep dive in Formula One. A lot of times in the Speed Traveler Roadshow, our main show, we don't have a whole lot of time to talk details. But we were in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Formula One race, and some of our listeners were really encouraging us to go into more of a deep dive. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be podcast only to start. But it should be easy to find. And you know what? The other thing that's interesting, Chris, is there are not a whole lot of American voices in the F1 broadcasts. It's mostly produced solely in the UK.
Right, and even the American voices, they're all coming out of the UK. Out of the UK broadcast. Like Danica Patrick is has re-upped her deal to
Yes,
be part of the F1 commentary team,
right.
which is great. But it's not an American team, and it's a very skewed. It seems to be very, if you will, a Silverstone based
Yeah, exactly.
broadcast.
And if for those of you listening don't know what we're saying, at the Formula One broadcast team, great team, but mostly made up of Brits, and I think that they're slightly biased. I mean, you can't be 100% unbiased, and so I think the
No,
Formula.
I'm completely biased. I'm all for Haas F1. I want to
Right.
see Gunther Steiner, stomp around and say his things. And quite frankly, I'm excited to see what Michael Andretti can do with the Andretti Motorsports Group, and getting a full-on another American squad in the Formula One ranks.
Yeah, they've been talking about. He's been talking about bringing in GM and Cadillac for a long time, and it might actually become a reality in the next few years. I mean, he's working really hard to make that happen. It's funny that some of the other team owners, team principals like Mercedes, is vehemently objecting to Cadillac and General Motors coming in and Andretti, which I think's funny.
And it's funny because part of that, the reasoning is, oh, it's too big a company for Formula One.
Right.
It's like, oh, they're an
Exactly.
automotive manufacturer.
Yeah.
What
Right.
does Mercedes do?
Yeah, the sport is the right now the hottest property in the world. I see that the TV rights were extremely expensive. The TV audience was up 25%. The attendance at the races was up everywhere. I mean, F1 is just a super hot property.
It really is. And you mentioned the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and for all of its pitfalls, it was an incredible event. I was super excited, not only to be there, to be a part of it, but to witness it in person. And of course, we know about the pitfalls, but at the end of the day, it was an amazing show. It was a great race. The facilities, has the potential to be just, top tier, number one event on the calendar. It has that opportunity. But I still have to say, one of my favorite things about finding out, that I found for the first time during the Las Vegas Grand Prix, was actually when we went, and this is kind of an aside, this is more of that roadshow part, is when we found, what was the name of the breakfast place? The Hash House A
Right,
Go Go.
right. Hash house a go go.
That place was awesome.
Yeah, and by
I
the
mean, the
way,
best breakfast.
and they're not paying us to say that. That's a legitimate opinion. It was amazing.
Yeah. And we made some good friends there. One of the guys, one of the original founders from the San Diego location, opened up the place in Las Vegas. And I guess they have two locations in Las Vegas now. But I got to tell you, I mean, it was funny. We found our way there. We found it early in our trip to Las Vegas, and we ended up going back every morning. That's
Yeah,
how good it was.
yeah. It was. I think we did what 3 or 4 mornings in a row, but it was so good. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you're new to the Speed Traveler, we try and give you pro tips. Here's a Speed Traveler pro trip. It's fun to be in. It's fun to be in Las Vegas. You don't really need to spend $2,000 for a ticket. It was really fun just to be in Las Vegas, and I think you could continue that. And it's something like for Formula One. We're talking Formula One right now, but the Super Bowl is coming up in Vegas. It's a great time to just be there in the city. You don't even have to spend 10 grand to go to the football game, or 2 or 3 or 10 grand to go to the Formula One. Just being in town was really fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Because there was so much action, so much activity, so many people in the city. There was just energy galore. And you're right, Charlie. You don't have to spend 10 grand to be at the stadium and watch the football game. Every casino has a sports book with 57 TVs, Jumbotron TVs on the wall. You can get an amazing Super Bowl experience, just being in the sports book. And the energy is going to be, I mean, if it's anything like the Formula One race was, the energy is just going to be electric.
Yeah, and that goes the same for Austin, the Austin GP. I've heard that's a great. I have personally haven't been. I've been to the track, but not to the Formula One race. That's would be the same. You could go to Austin during the Formula One race and have a blast. You could go to Miami in May for the Formula One race there and just participate in all the activities around town.
Yeah, and there's so much to see in Miami. I mean, we have a couple Speed Traveler road shows that we're going to be producing in the near future that focus on the Florida driving scene, if you will.
Yeah. And, on that note, Chris, we're going to take a quick break in a minute here. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some of the trips that we want to take in 2024, and also some trips that we've taken in the past that have been a blast. And so hang tight. We'll be right back with the Speed Traveler Roadshow here on KHTS Radio. All right, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow here on KHTS Radio, hometownstation.com. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts and on the Speed Traveler YouTube page, which is The Speed Traveler. You can find us there. I'm joined by my co-host and longtime friend, Chris Evertsen. And Chris, you want to talk a little bit more about some of the trips we're going to take in 2024?
Charlie, I do, because we've got some fun stuff planned for 2024. I mean, I think at the top of that list really has to be the recreation of the vacation road trip from Chicago to Wally World. Wally World was actually is not a real amusement park. It was actually portrayed as Wally World, but it's really Magic Mountain amusement park in the Valencia area.
Right.
But that's going to be loads of fun. I mean, there's so much stuff from Chicago to Southern California to Los Angeles that we're going to be able to participate in. It's going to be a blast. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to doing the vacation road trip.
Yeah, we'll have the song going the full time. Where we might have someone driving by in a red Ferrari. And what was funny is, Chris, is accidentally I was going to meet you at the Orange County Auto Show, and I was headed south on the 5 freeway, and I got off to take a quick emergency break. And what was crazy is I walked by a photograph as I was going to the bathroom, and it looked like Chevy Chase and Christy Brinkley. And so I walked by and I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, why would Chevy Chase be doing ads for Best Western or whatever it is? So on the way back out, I took a closer look, and they said in this location in 1982, I think it was, they filmed the movie Vacation. So for those of you who know the movie, I think every car person knows the movie. There's a scene where they're supposed to be in Arizona, and Chevy Chase's character needs to get out of the house and go have a beer, and he runs into this blonde girl who's Christy Brinkley, who he had been driving past many times on their cross-country journey, and they have a funny, really great scene in the pool there. But the pool's there. The place is in a time capsule. It hasn't changed in 42 years. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, if you're a fan of the movie and of what I think is one of the most hysterical scenes in the movie, also as a man, seeing Christy Brinkley in a bikini is always a great thing to see.
Right.
That is a worthy motel to go visit, and it's right here in Southern California.
Yeah.
And by the way, Christy Brinkley was driving one of our favorite cars of all time too, the Ferrari 308 GTS.
Right. And then in the sequel, it changed to the Mondial when she had twins, because they needed a back seat for that scene.
That's right. That's so funny.
And if you want to find the hotel, it's called the Saddleback Inn, and it's in Norwalk, California. And so it's a very cool place. And if you walk in and go over to the pool, you'll immediately recognize it from Vacation. I mean, it just hasn't changed at all. But what other trips were you thinking about for this year?
Well, Charlie, there's so many. I think one that it's been done and done and done, but it's all been done east to west. And you and I are considering doing Route 66 west to east.
Oh, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was part of the original trip from Chicago to Los Angeles was Route 66. And now, they've added some interstates. It's kind of like the movie Cars. If you haven't seen the cartoon movie Cars, it's like the interstates have come in and they've kind of bypassed some of these old towns. But if you were in Santa Monica, we're talking about doing this trip going east, just like you said. And when you get to Victorville, there's the Route 66 Museum right off the side of the road there. So great place to start your Route 66 trip.
Yeah, for us on the West Coast, it's a great way to start your trip. And if you do start your trip from the East Coast, it's a great place to finish your trip because there's so much memorabilia there.
Yeah.
And there's so much, oddly enough, it's Victorville. So you kind of go, huh, Victorville. It's not
Right.
exactly,
Beverly
you
Hills.
know, it's not exactly Beverly Hills, exactly right. And but there's so much cool stuff out there. I mean, like if you go to Amboy Airport, Joshua Tree is right there. You
Right.
talked about other road trips. I mean, there's tons of smaller roads, or I should say, shorter routes you can do just in Joshua Tree that are incredible.
Yeah, and Joshua G became really famous when people come out to Coachella, and actually that's a good tip, Chris. If you're coming to one of the music festivals in Coachella, I think they go for 5 weeks between Stagecoach and the Coachella actual festival. You could take a road trip, a day road trip, and you could find your way over to Route 66, Joshua Tree, and I want to talk a little bit more about the Amboy Airport because the owner of the Amboy Airport also owns the Route 66 Museum. So he is really, really into it. And if you've ever played the game Grand Theft Auto, you'll recognize Amboy Airport from Grand Theft Auto. So it's just a cool place, really unique place to visit.
It is, and there's a lot to see there. And again, all the roads around there. Like if you went out to Needles, there's a couple of highways that kind of navigate some BLM land between Palm Desert and basically on your way to Las Vegas. I guess it'd be Bakersfield,
Right.
and it's it's a really cool road. It's kind of winding. I mean, you got to watch out for the occasional fast-moving desert tortoise. Uh,
Right.
and but it's super cool, and just the terrain is amazing, and surprisingly, the road surfaces are in really good shape.
Yeah, they
And so it's always nice when you can get on a road that's got some history, but is not completely beat up. There's
yeah.
some that are out there that are pretty darn beat up. Basically, it's a wandering pothole.
Yeah, and since we're on in radio in Southern California, quickly I just want to discuss our route, and you'll be able to see this on an upcoming episode, video on the Speed Traveler YouTube page of us doing this route. But we're going to start at Santa Monica Pier, head out to. There's actually two museums. Ironically, there's one in Victorville called the Route 66 Museum, and then there's another one called the Mother Road Route 66 Mother Lode Museum in Barstow. So I think we're going to go to Barstow and then we're going to head south down to Amboy Airport. What's cool about that is there's a spot where there's a giant sign painted on the road. It says Route 66, so people love taking pictures of that. And then we're going to cruise our way through Joshua Tree. We're going to end up in either Palm Desert, and there's a place called the La Quinta Resort, which is incredible. Been there 100 years. We love that place. And also, there's a new place called Margaritaville
Margaritaville.
in Palm Springs, and it's funny because when I think Margaritaville, I think people getting trashed, with 3 foot long
Kenny,
drinks. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
but this is kind of a upscale, which is interesting. So they went a little bit
right.
different. So that's the route. If you're in Southern California, it's a fun little route. And what other trips you thinking? I know we both have done the St. Augustine to Vero Beach route. That's a really good time, isn't it?
Yeah, we're talking about Florida and the F1 race in Miami, and if you do make your way to the Formula One race in Miami, surprisingly, there are some really cool routes to take, and it's really about some of the amazing technological history that we have here in the United States. You get to go, Cape Canaveral's right there, Vero Beach is right there, Cocoa Beach is really cool. I mean, the Aerospace Museum's insane. To see one of those Saturn V rockets it's a monster of an engine. So the space race is kind of fun. I mean, we talked a little bit about this in a previous episode when we were highlighting the Corvettes, and I believe the year was 1967 when they gave the Apollo, was it the Apollo 11
Oh yeah.
astronauts all Corvettes?
Yes, exactly. That was a great year. Actually, it might have been 68. I'll check that out right now. 67, 68. But they all got new Corvettes, and how cool was that?
Yeah, well, I mean, a marketing windstorm for Chevrolet and Corvette brand,
Yes.
because that did huge had a huge impact on the sales of Corvettes after that took place. Because I mean, there was just so many stories coming out of that area of the boys, the space race boys in those Corvettes just
Yeah.
tearing up the pavement.
Yeah, right. And turn it up in the local bars afterwards. But
Yeah,
yeah, there,
that's another story
yeah,
though.
I think there's a movie our friend Bill Broyles wrote, and it's called Apollo 13. And that oh no, excuse me, I'm thinking. Well, Bill Broyles did write Apollo 13, but a movie that does kind of characterize that time was The Right Stuff. It's a
The
great, great,
right stuff.
yeah, the movie The
Yeah.
Right Stuff. But also one other thing we're talking about that A1A route. I've got a quick story. We were going to the Daytona 24 hours, and in typical speed traveler fashion, we didn't make any reservations. So we got to the town of Daytona and realized there was absolutely nowhere to stay. Every single hotel, motel was sold out. So we rode up around midnight and got into this town. I had never been to St. Augustine, Florida, checked in at night, and then the next morning, I woke up. I went downstairs, and there was cobblestone streets, and it was the the first European settled town in America. I always thought it was up in Boston somewhere, but apparently it was
Yeah.
St. Augustine, Florida. And they've done a great job of keeping the old town, similar to how it was in 1755. And so, really, really cool, unique history and something unexpected.
Yeah, that's so cool. And that's the kind of thing you can research this stuff, but when you just happen to find these gems, that's what makes these road trips so exciting, and that's why Charlie, I love being able to tell folks about just go explore out in Palm Desert. If we're in Las Vegas, go visit Valley of Fire. There's some really fun stuff to see everywhere. There's a great road in North Dakota, and you can find yourself to the National Monument out there.
Yeah.
It's just there's so many great things to just stumble upon wherever you are. Colorado, there's just great roads everywhere and great local history and national history. And quite frankly, St. Augustine being one of the first settled European style towns in the United States, it's just crazy to think that's where it was. It's not, up north,
Yeah,
north along
exactly.
the border or the coastline there.
Yeah, in New England or Boston, it's not there. But all right, well, now we have talked about the roads. When we come back from break, we are going to talk about some cars that you can buy to actually drive on these roads. You're listening to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We'll be right back after this break. All right, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. I am Charlie Frank, and I'm joined here by my co-host Chris Evertsen. How you doing, Chris?
Charlie, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to everyone that's just tuning in, and to you as well, Charlie.
Yeah, Happy New Year. So we on the Speed Traveler Roadshow, we talk about cars, we talk about road trips, we talk Formula One racing, and this segment, Chris, we're going to talk about some fun cars that you can buy that, with a little luck, are actually going to go up in value and not down in value.
Well, I mean, are we talking about cars in this one, or are we talking
You're
more
right.
along the lines of
Trucks.
trucks?
Yeah, that's a good point. So every week we pick a featured marque. You can go back, and if you're looking for instance, an old Corvette, you can go back and listen to our episode on YouTube on the Speed Traveler page, and you could find episodes where we talked about Corvette, or we talked about Ford, or we talked about Ferrari or Porsche. Today we're going to talk about some of our favorite pickup trucks and SUVs. And
Yeah, it's not exactly model specific.
right,
Like you said, Charlie. Normally, it's about the Corvette or
yeah,
it's about the Mercedes. But today it's about the truck.
yeah.
And there are a number of marques out there that have made amazing trucks throughout the generations.
Yeah, and you were you were the owner of one of those that was at the time at the time, and this was the 80s, and even into the 90s and 2000s you could find these trucks for $2,500, $3,000, but they're selling for 10, 15, $20,000 now. We're talking about your famous Datsun 620.
Ah, yes, the little hustler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I gotta say, that was still one of my favorite trucks. It's, Datsun, now known as Nissan here in the U.S., produced that vehicle. And what's kind of interesting about the Datsun 620, Little Hustler, is it shared a lot of the parts with the Datsun 510, the little sedan that just made racing history back in the day. I mean, folks like Paul Newman really shed his abilities and learned his skill sets in a Datsun 510, which is kind of cool. But the Datsun 620 little Hustler was a great little pickup. I mean, we beat the piss out of that thing for a number of years.
Right. Yeah, it was, and it's. I'm looking up the numbers right now, but you know that if you want to find something like that now, they're so expensive. You know, I
The
see.
numbers all over the place. I mean, I literally just looked and there's one for 20 grand and it still needs a little bit of work. I saw one for about 2,200 bucks, but it was an automatic
Yeah.
and it was beat to piss. The Datsun truck, this Datsun truck, it's an older truck. It was designed to be lightweight.
Right.
This was kind of around the gas crunch,
Yeah.
gas crisis of the
Exactly.
late 70s.
Yep.
So mileage and cost effectiveness and lightweight was kind of the cornerstone of all the building that was taking place coming out of Japan. So it was a lightweight vehicle, and what that means is you might find a lot of rust. So you got to be careful with buying any of these older, lighter weight vehicles,
Right.
especially trucks, because you might find a lot of rust, and you've got to be prepared to repair that rust. Now, the nice thing is, it's pretty easy to cut out panels and put them back in with some of these older trucks like that, like a Ford F-150 or something like that, because they're very simple vehicles.
Right. Yeah. The K series from GM, great series. The Blazer, great cars. I see a 74 Datsun 610 just sold on Bring a Trailer. Bring a Trailer is a great site that does auctions every week. I think that they have an unbelievable amount of auctions going on at any one time, over 700. And they've got
Wow.
one. I see a 610 just sold for $16,750. So, that's not a bad return if you picked up the truck for 2,500 bucks, huh?
Right. You just got again. The part that's not equated into that sale value is the amount of time that you've got to put into it and
Yeah,
have someone else
true.
put into it.
Right.
So you got to account for those kind of things when you're shopping for a unique vehicle or any vehicle.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, and along those lines, now let's talk a little bit about the Hummer brand. You know, the Hummer brand's near and dear to my heart. I really like the brand. And
It's a
there's,
cool truck. I mean, how can you not like something that was
yeah,
comes from a very heavy, hard use environment, the military.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's the new Jeep. It basically replaced the Jeep that was the Willys Jeep that was started in what,
Ford,
1953, I think.
yeah,
No, it was
exactly.
before that, 43.
43, yeah. No, and the Hummer brand's a great brand. I personally have the H2 SUT sport utility truck, and those are great. If you're going to look at those, you want to get the 2008 2009s. Those are the last 2 years that they made them, and it was a different car. It was a better, improved car, different motor from the '04, '05, '06, '07 cars. So you want, but they're not cheap. They're $45,000 or so, but they're only going to go up. The other thing that's interesting about that car, as you know, Chris, is that it can run on E85 ethanol. So I always have like a
Yeah.
chuckle where, like driving around Santa Monica, you get dirty looks from somebody in a Tesla. And it's like, I would venture to say that the Hummer is about as clean as the Tesla with when you're running on E85 gas.
It's so true. It's so funny, and I love the looks you do get when you're driving that truck
Yeah,
around because people really either love it. It's a love it or hate it
it sure
vehicle.
is. Yeah. But
You
you know
know.
what? In a sense, that's what makes it unique. And that's what's going to give it value in the future is that there's a lot of people who love that car and there's a lot of people that love that people hate it, so it's a,
Yeah.
it's a great
People
brand.
have an opinion about the vehicle, and anytime someone has an opinion, they're going to make noise about that. So
Yeah.
that's what's going to keep the Hummer
The value.
in everyone's storybook
Yeah.
because everyone's got an opinion, so everyone's going to talk or argue about it. You
Yeah.
know.
And you mentioned a pickup truck. Hummer made, it was really, really a small numbers, but they made an H3 pickup truck. And they're
Yes.
very, very rare. I think they made a total of a couple thousand of them.
It
And
wasn't. They only made it for like 2 model years, and it was a
yeah,
very
they
limited
did.
production.
And for those of you who don't know the story, it was the bottom of the economy in 2009, and GM was almost ready to go out of business. If it wasn't for the government to step in, they gave them a lot of money to save them. But the Hummer brand, apparently, they walked in one day. and they shut it down. And the people at work, they were like, okay, we'll get our stuff together. We'll, be ready for the shutdown next week on Friday. And the executives were like, no, we're shutting it down today, right now. Like, everyone go home right now. So they left cars, in different states of production. They had some still that were made that literally apparently were in the factory that they were able to sell later. But what a crazy story, right? I mean, it was just shut down on the spot.
That's just so crazy.
Yeah.
Just so crazy. And, for you Hummer fans, this doesn't help us in California, but because of the rules and regulations, but the military, all branches are selling off a lot of their older inventory, and Hummers fill a lot of the fields of decommissioned vehicles that are now
Right.
being sold off to auction.
Yeah.
And it's a great way. I mean, you might find one that's pretty beat up. And my advice would be, if you can, you buy two to build one, but you can get them really, really cheap.
You can.
The problem is here in California, you just can't register them.
Right. You can. And
You
that's
can in other states,
and
Texas, Arizona, Montana. I think the Dakotas are no issue.
right.
And so those are great states if you want to build a really cool former military use vehicle. The Hummer is your platform.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the H1 and the original H1, the prices have skyrocketed. I mean, they're $100,000. But you can
Yeah.
still find the decommissioned military ones. And what's weird about them is I think they didn't have VIN numbers, if I remember correctly, and that's what the issue is with registering. But you're right. Places have found, Arizona and Montana, they figured out a way around it, and you are able to register them in those places. But yeah, that's a good point, because you can buy the decommissioned H1s, or for $15,000 as opposed to $100,000.
Even less. I mean, I was just looking a couple days ago, and I found some. They're fairly beat up, but for $5-8 grand. And again, if you buy, like I mentioned, I think one of the tricks here is being able to afford to buy two of them, so you have a parts vehicle and then you have a build vehicle.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, if you build this vehicle and you're somewhere, you spent somewhere around $30,000.
Right.
You're building a vehicle that now has the ability to run for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Because they are so durable.
They sure are.
And quite frankly, you're building it for $30,000, and you can turn around, like you just said, and flip it for closing in on $100K.
Yeah, once you get it registered. One other truck, because we love the oddball cars, and a great oddball car that I love is the Isuzu Veracross, and that was built they built it for 5 years, I believe, in Japan. They only imported it to the U.S. for 3 years, and that was 99, 2000, 2001. All total world production was about 5,900 cars. And they just look so cool, don't they? I mean, it's such a unique looking car.
They really do. It's a hysterical car, and I might be dating myself a little bit here. Back in the day, there was a TV commercial series that Isuzu put out with a comedian, and his TV personality name was Isuzu Joe.
Right.
And they actually. I remember those commercials today. So obviously the marketing agent that put together a winning platform. Yeah. But if you ever look up the Isuzu Joe commercials, and they're pretty funny.
Yeah, and if you want to try and find one of those cars, they are around. You would spend anywhere from about $7,000 for one with maybe 150, 60, 70,000 miles, all the way up to, I've seen them as high as $17,000 right now with the less than 100,000 miles. But if you dig hard, you go on Craigslist, as we always say, go on Craigslist, expand the map. There's an option to search by the map, and you can find them for sale by owner. For $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. So, it's a car that's going up in value. It's definitely an oddball car, but that's what we're all about here.
It is a total oddball car. I mean, it kind of looks like an old Pacer on steroids.
Exactly, and a bug.
We'll throw in a bug, a cross between a bug and a Pacer.
Yeah.
It's just a wild-looking car, but it's got a lot of power. It's got you had two options. You have a 3.2 liter and a 3.5 liter V6 engine.
Right.
Pushed out about 215 horsepower.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Which ain't bad.
Right.
but really the torque was really good too.
Yeah. No, it's a cool little car, and it's very, very affordable, and it's going to be reliable. So, it's
It's going to be reliable.
yeah. But all right,
Well, I
we're
mean,
gonna
imagine trying to find like an Isuzu Trooper. I
yeah.
mean, even the Isuzu Trooper, an older Isuzu Trooper or a Suzuki Samurai.
Right. Oh, the prices have
You
gone
cannot
crazy.
find a Suzuki Samurai,
You cannot.
that's in good nick for less than 25 grand right
No,
now.
it's crazy. But yeah,
It's
so
crazy.
something to keep an eye on, the Isuzu Veracross. And we are going to take a quick break, Chris, and we're going to come back and talk Formula One and the Dakar Rally. So stay tuned. We'll
All
be right
right.
back. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. My name is Charlie Frank, and I'm joined by Chris Evertsen, and we are on KHTS Radio in the Santa Clarita Valley area. It's political radio, so this is your chance. If you're listening on old school radio, this is your chance to take a deep breath and and relax and have a few laughs. And Chris, what do we got going in our last segment here?
This is kind of where it all started for you and I with this whole podcast concept with the cars and coffee.
Right.
And we've gone to a lot of these cars and coffee events. We've produced cars and coffee events. We want to produce more cars and coffee events here in the 2024 season or year. But I'm super excited about some of the events that are coming up.
Yeah, and you know what? A great place to check that out is carsandcoffeeevents.com. They also have an app, and the app is really convenient because it targets your area, and then it'll send you a little message. You can check and see what's happening that weekend, and it'll give you all of the cars and coffee events going on in your area. And I didn't realize they had so many events, but they have 17,000 plus events that are going on
Well,
their calendar.
That's only on this site. And Eric,
Yeah.
I mean, they've done an amazing job. I love this app.
Yeah.
I love this app. If you're into going to Cars and Coffee, you want to find a new Cars and Coffee,
Right.
download the carsandcoffeeevents.com. Download the app from their website.
Right.
Because it's so cool.
Yeah,
You
and
never realize, wait, there's a Cars and Coffee a block away from me.
yeah,
What?
exactly. And I think that some of the issues is you go to the same Cars and Coffee, and it's just like a permanent fixture, and it's like the same old guys and gals, and sometimes you want to mix it up a little bit. So yeah, I didn't realize there was one very close to me, and I never knew it existed, and it's in the Burbank area, and so excited about going to that in a week and a half. But yeah, great app.
Yeah, it's so cool, and we call this the road show. So it's a great way to think about linking a road trip from one Cars and Coffee event to another Cars and Coffee event.
That's a good point.
It's not that far away. You could literally get a group of buddies,
Yeah.
your guys and girls together, and go for a little cruise. Get your J-Bugs vehicle out there and cruise from town to town. I mean,
Yeah.
we've done this. We've done this ourselves in a lot of vehicles. It's loads of fun just going from one event to the next.
Yeah. But no, that's a really good idea of going from event to event. You could hit like 3 in one day. It sounds like a blast. And you know what? I think that could be a future Speed Traveler activity for our listeners. We can all join in and cruise around, hit some cars and coffees.
That's a great idea, Charlie. I'd love to hear from any of the listeners that are tuning in today. And that if you're in the Southern California area and you want to go cruising, we're in.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you know what? It doesn't even have to be Southern California. There's a great road trip someplace out there that you know of, whether it's in Montana or Kansas City or wherever it is. I don't really care because we're all about the road trip. Let us know and let's see if we can get out there.
Yeah, that's great advice. So the last segment, we usually talk about racing. We did talk Formula One a little bit, and we are going to start a Formula One only podcast. The reason for that is a lot of our listeners, the Roadshow, they want to hear us talking about cars, how to buy cars, road trips, things like that. But there's a lot of hardcore Formula One fans now that want more and more and more content. So we're going to start the Speed Traveler Formula One show in January. And are you looking forward? I'm sure you're looking forward to that, Chris.
Oh, I am so looking forward to that. I mean, there's so much information to talk about, to discuss, to debate, and to consider. And right off the top, 23 races in the season. It would have been that many the last year, except we had a couple cancellations.
Right.
what was it? Imola got flooded in Italy,
Right.
and then the Chinese Grand Prix was canceled. But the Chinese race is back on the calendar.
Yep. I see that.
With and so 23 races with the first one starting. What was that in early end of February?
Yeah, it's about the earliest start ever for Formula One. They're going to do the practice. For those of you somewhat new to Formula One, you can't just test the cars over and over and over, 5, 8, 10 days in a row. You can only test the cars at the Formula One sanctioned testing events, and that's the weekend before the first race of the year in Bahrain. And I think it's only 3 days, Chris.
It's
So,
a short test.
yeah,
It's got to be challenging because I know it takes me a little time when I jump into a new car and get out on the track. It takes a little time to get the feel for it. And
right.
before you even want to get to 10 tenths, you want several days, more than 3 days in that car.
Yeah.
And we're talking about cars that are only doing about 120, 150 miles an hour, whereas these Formula One cars can top 200 miles an hour,
Yeah,
and have a
exactly.
cornering speed that is 10 times any car that's out on the road.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's crazy what these drivers have to accomplish. Now, granted, they do have amazing simulators to work with,
Right.
but there's nothing like being on the track
It's just,
using real rubber on real tarmac.
yeah, no, there's nothing like it. And the worst part is if your car isn't good, you only have a week to try and make it better. So, I mean, I'm sure the Formula One drivers are just, collectively stressing about this. God forbid, like you said, it could be great on paper, it could be great on computer sim, but when you put tires to the road, it may not be great, and then it's gonna make for a long year.
I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think the drivers are more stressed out, or is it at this point is it the engineers and
Yeah,
the designers? I mean,
I
not
think
the
it's
Adrian Newey's are
right.
they just losing their mind? Is that why he is bald?
Yeah, exactly. Pulls all his hair out. Poor guy. Also, we talked about Ferrari. They did a good job. And, before we leave, Chris, I want to talk a little bit about the Carlos Sainz, who's one of the drivers for the Ferrari team. His dad is the original race car driver. He was a famous World Rally Championship driver in Europe. He races this race now called the Dakar Rally. A lot of people have never heard of the Dakar Rally. It's starting on January 5th.
Yeah, it's coming right up, and it's an amazing event. One, I mean, you see everything from two-wheel motorcycles to these massive race trucks
Right.
and
I love
everything
the
in
trucks.
between.
Yeah.
And speaking of trucks, a Southern California kid's going to be just got the ride for Toyota. He's now the factory driver for the Toyota Helix.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? Seth Quintero from San Marcos, actually one of your neighbors, Chris.
Yep.
We say he's a kid. He's 21 years old. He's done probably 8 seasons of off-road racing, all from Baja 1000, everything. He's done actually a couple Dakars in the side-by-side category, but the last year's winner, Nasser Al-Attiyah, who's won 2 in a row of the Dakar rallies at Toyota, he's moved on to the Pro Drive team now, and so Seth Quintero's moving over to arguably the best seat in the business, and it's just so cool to have an American kid out there. The Dakar Rally drivers generally are a little older, and so I think it's great. What do you think of the youth movement, Chris?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, Seth seems like I've only seen him in interviews and on some podcast conversations, and he seems like a very grounded, sensible individual. And I think you have to be when you're taking, a truck like that and running it over terrain that you're not exactly familiar with.
Right.
You're really relying on your co-driver. Maybe your past history of having run the routes and whatnot. I think it's incredible to see these young drivers come up. I think it's great for the racing. And the fact that he's running a Toyota Helix, I'm hoping that Toyota brings the Helix back to the United States.
Yeah,
I mean,
wouldn't
it's
that
kind
be
of
great?
here in the Tundra form, but not really.
Yeah. Well, you know
Tacoma,
what? He's
excuse me.
gonna Seth Quintero and the Red Bull team. They're gonna put the Helix on the map for sure. And that might spark interest to bring the car back. But quickly before we get off the topic, you can find all the information at Dakar.com. They're running the race in Saudi Arabia. It's a 14-day event, and it's the most grueling motorsports event in the world. 5,000 miles. They go over sand dunes, dirt roads, The beaches. I mean, it's really pretty incredible. And I just want to do a quick shout out for a couple of the American drivers. We mentioned Seth Quintero, Ricky Brayback, who is from Southern California. He won the event in 2020 on a motorcycle. He's coming back.
Two-wheel.
Yep, two wheels on a Honda. He's racing for the Honda factory team. Also, Austin Jones, who is one. He's actually two in a row now. He won the T4 side-by-side category in 2022. He also won the T3 category in 2023. He's back again, and it's just a cool event to check out. You can see it on Speed Traveler, the Speed Traveler. You can see it on NBC Sports, and you can also catch it on Dakar.com. But it's an exciting race, Chris.
It really is. 5,000 miles, 14 days. It's Lawrence of Arabia all over again. They're going to be moving fast, so it's unbelievable. Plus, I mean, with the chase helicopters.
Oh yeah.
They can't use drones because the drones just don't go fast enough.
Right.
Nor do they have enough the sustainable airtime. So they use helicopters, and the guys in the helicopters, man, I mean, the skill sets they're using just following these guys.
Yeah. And if you've never heard of the Dakar Rally, check it out. Go on YouTube. NBC Sports downloads a new episode every single night during the race, January 5th to the 18th, I believe. And the cinematography is incredible. They get these shots all shot from helicopters, and it's beautiful and it's unique. You owe it to yourself if you're a car fan and you've never heard of the Dakar Rally to check it out.
If you're a cinematography fan, you've got to check it out. It's so cool. There's so much great stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Speed Traveler Cars and Coffee, Chris. And we're going to come back next week. And we appreciate everyone listening. Happy New Year. And we'll be back next week.